I met Claire at a fundraiser in Nashville. She was 35, polished, radiant, with a laugh that carried across the room like a bell. I was 58, seasoned, steady, and, if I'm honest, lonely. My first wife had passed 5 years earlier. My grown kids worried about me rattling around the house with too much silence. So when Claire took my hand, squeezed it like she'd been waiting for me all her life, I let myself believe it. If you've ever been love-bombed or pressured into something that didn't sit right, you'll understand where this story is heading. Hit like if you relate, drop your name and state for a shout-out in the next story, and subscribe so you don't miss the unraveling of Claire's game. At first, it felt like magic. She praised everything I did, called me the wisest man she'd ever met. She moved quickly, always nudging me forward, talking about the wedding, about merging our lives, about how secure she felt with me. It was flattering, comforting. And yet there were small cracks. She hated when I spent time with old friends, saying they distracted me from her. She wept, full sobs, if I questioned her spending. She always reminded me that I was lucky to have her, that younger men were chasing her still. And when she found out about my trust fund, her tone shifted from sweet to sharp. You'll take care of me, won't you? After all, what's love if not protection? It wasn't romance anymore. It was pressure, subtle at first, then blunt. I was being blackmailed emotionally. Guilt if I didn't give, icy silence if I resisted. But I didn't rise to the bait. At my age, you learn patience is stronger than reaction. So, while she busied herself planning an extravagant wedding, I made a quiet call to my attorney. I asked for a document to be drawn up, one she wouldn't notice, one that would matter more than anything she thought she was marrying me for. Life with Claire became a performance. Her performance and my reluctant audience. She wanted to be adored, to be the center of every room, every conversation. At dinners, she'd speak over me, correct me, then later pout in the car if I didn't flatter her enough. Her moods were weapons. If I resisted her spending, designer shoes, weekend spa trips, she'd turn cold, refusing to speak to me for days. Other times, she'd cry, telling me she was afraid of being abandoned. It was never about us. It was always about her needs, her image, her security. I noticed she never asked about my day, never touched the photo of my late wife that sat in the hallway. To her, my past didn't matter, only the future she thought she was buying into. Her most cutting line came one night after I suggested we keep the wedding small. She looked me square in the eye and said, "You don't understand, do you? I've sacrificed my best years for this. Don't you dare make me feel like a fool." That word, sacrificed, hung heavy. She wasn't talking about love. She was talking about investment, return, profit. I wasn't a husband in her eyes. I was an asset. It stung, but it didn't surprise me. By then, I'd already seen the truth. Claire was never in love with me. She was in love with what she thought my money could give her. But here's what she didn't know. A month before the wedding, when she rushed me to sign a stack of venue contracts and legal formalities, I had slipped in one of my own. She signed it without a second glance, more eager to pose for the camera than read the fine print. It wasn't a venue agreement. It was a prenuptial contract. Ironclad, reviewed by the best attorney I could find. She thought she was securing her future. In reality, she was locking herself out of it. The wedding day came quicker than I expected. Claire orchestrated every detail. White roses, a string quartet, a guest list thick with people I hardly knew, but who all seemed important to her. I kept my head down and let her build her stage. I remember standing at the altar, looking at her walk down the aisle. She wasn't looking at me. She was scanning the room, taking in the eyes on her, basking in the attention. It struck me then, she wasn't marrying me. She was marrying the life she imagined. After the vows, she clung to my arm tightly, whispering in my ear, "Don't ever forget who made you feel alive again." It wasn't tenderness, it was possession. Married life was short and sharp. Within weeks, she pushed harder. Trips to New York, new jewelry, sudden emergencies that needed thousands. She spoke of our money, but never once contributed a dime. She badgered me into cutting ties with friends she deemed beneath us. I played along, patient, calm, waiting. 3 months in, she showed her hand. One evening, she walked into the living room, lips tight, holding a single piece of paper. "I want a divorce," she said, her voice cool. "You'll take care of me, of course. After all, I left everything for you." I nodded as if defeated. "If that's what you want." What she didn't know was that every step she'd taken had already been written into the trap she signed before we wed. The prenup wasn't just protection, it was her undoing. She filed, confident she'd walk away with half my trust fund. She told her friends she was finally free and set for life. I stayed quiet, waiting for the court to open the papers that would shatter her certainty. The look on her face when the truth surfaced, that was the moment I knew patience had been my greatest weapon. The courthouse was quiet the morning of our hearing, the kind of stillness that makes every sound sharp. Claire arrived in a tailored suit, chin high, eyes glittering with the confidence of someone who thought the world was about to hand her a prize. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. In her mind, this was already won. Her attorney spoke first, painting her as the devoted wife who had given everything to me in 3 short months. They demanded a share of my trust fund, the house, spousal support, the works. Claire sat there smirking, nodding along as though she were already spending the money. Then my lawyer slid the document across the table. "Your Honor, before we proceed, we'd like to submit the prenuptial agreement signed by Mrs. Whitmore on the 12th of June. The room went still. Claire's smile faltered. She leaned forward, scanning the pages, her face draining of color. "I never signed this," she snapped, her voice too loud, too desperate. But the signature was hers. Dated, witnessed, filed properly. She had been in such a rush that day, so eager to push me through the stack of wedding contracts, that she never noticed the clause protecting every cent of my trust. The judge read it carefully, then leaned back. "This agreement is valid. Mrs. Whitmore, you are entitled to none of the assets in question." Her chair screeched against the floor as she stood up, fury shaking her voice. "You tricked me." For the first time, I met her eyes and spoke. Calm, steady. "No, Claire. You tricked yourself. You wanted the money more than the marriage." The verdict was final. She walked out of that courtroom with nothing but the clothes on her back and the weight of her own choices. And I walked out free, lighter than I had in years. After the divorce, the silence in my house no longer felt heavy. It felt like breathing again. Claire's perfume was gone from the curtains. Her high heels no longer cluttered the hallway. The place felt mine again, not because of what I kept, but because of what I'd finally let go. Friends who had stayed distant during the whirlwind reappeared. My kids, who had been politely skeptical of her from the start, came around more often. They didn't say "I told you so." They just sat with me, shared meals, and filled the house with the kind of love money can't buy. I thought often about that courtroom, about the look on her face when the truth landed. She had come hunting for gold and walked away empty-handed. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was clarity. A man's worth isn't in his bank account. It's in knowing who he allows close and who he keeps at arm's length. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't vengeful. If anything, I was grateful. Claire taught me a lesson sharper than any loss could have. Never confuse charm with character. Never mistake pressure for love, and never hand the keys of your future to someone who only sees you as a prize. Now, when I make my morning coffee, I take it to the porch, sit with the quiet, and smile. Freedom has no price tag. It's not written in a will or held in a trust. It's the peace of knowing I chose wisely, even when it hurt. And that prenup? That wasn't just ink on paper. It was the rope she thought would pull me down, but it was the very thing that set me free. If you stayed through this whole journey, thank you. These stories mean nothing without your ears and your hearts. Hit like if it resonated, share it with someone who might need the reminder, and subscribe for more. Until next time, stay wise, stay steady, and protect your peace.